There's a haze in the air.
I don't want to spend a lot of time out here.
And it's not from any tailgate.
I'm old enough to be a little short of breath in this.
It's another Wisconsin summer clouded in wildfire smoke.
I don't see that pattern shifting anytime soon.
6 congressional Republicans are calling out Canada.
I've shaken the hands of American firefighters.
And our neighbors to the north are firing back.
And I would challenge these ambulance chasers in the U.S. Congress to go and do the same.
This week on Open Record, is there anything Canada can really do?
We do not see any quick reprieve.
To help us,
I guess God said keep your butt home.
Breathe a little easier. From the FOX 6 studios, this is Open Record. I'm Brian Polson, and I'm joined by Open Record's executive producer, Sarah Smith. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
And we are joined for his maiden voyage on Open Record by FOX 6 chief meteorologist Rob Haswell. Rob, thanks for being here in the studio.
Hey, it's nice to still have firsts left in this building after 20 years.
Right?
And of course, we bring Rob in when we're talking about Canada. That's the way it works, right?
It's convenient.
Yeah, happy to do it. I mean, obviously that's the connection there, but there's obviously the big meteorological connection as well. And this is a story that just isn't going away.
And we're going to talk about that. We are recording this on Wednesday, August 6th. As of this morning, Milwaukee's air quality index, according to IQ Air, 102. That's still in the unhealthy range, a little better than it's been, but other parts of Wisconsin not looking so good. We're going to talk about all of that. It's been an issue on and off all summer long, and it doesn't appear to be going away. We're going to talk about why Canadian wildfires keep putting a cloud over our summer fun. We're going to be joined by some special guests. We already are right here, but we also have Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany, who sent a letter to Canada. We're going to talk about that. And a spokesman for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources will be here later. All of that starts right after this.
We are back on Open Record. Here in Wisconsin and Southeast Wisconsin in particular, we are used to warnings and watches, and those become like, oh yeah, we know those. Well, air quality alert is another term that we are hearing a lot lately in Wisconsin.
I don't remember ever hearing it.
Now
it's
and it's
all
just
the time.
That's one thing that we were talking about,
Yeah.
and that's what everyone is talking about is this bad summer for air quality, wildfires burning out of control in Canada. So, Rob, why is it all coming here?
And why is it Canada's fault?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, it's Mother Nature's fault, right?
Yeah.
And it's climate change's fault. It's people's fault in general. And why are we focused on the Canadian wildfires? Well, because it's in our backyard, right? There are numerous other wildfires across the country. In fact, some of them are burning even more out of control than what's happening in central Canada. But we're not downwind of that. We're not dealing with the smoke, so obviously we're not talking about it. But this has been an incredible year for air quality alerts. We're on as of this recording, we're on a 9-day stretch of consecutive advisories or alerts. And the last time I can think of it being nearly this bad was 2023. And that's back when, we were talking about it being the equivalent of smoking a pack a day. The intensity was a little worse maybe a couple of years back, but the frequency is very high because, that 8-9 day stretch comes after a dozen or more back in July and even some back in June. We're basically in a kind of an atmospheric pattern right now that is very efficiently delivering the smoke our way. These fires are way up into central Canada, a very remote area. This is due north of the Dakotas and Minnesota, but by like another Minnesota. Like it's way up there, way away from the infrastructure. Even the California wildfires, a year or so ago, had more access to infrastructure and water and support and, human resources than this part of Canada does. So it's very challenging. It takes so much more energy, effort, and resources to get even a single firefighter in place up there and to keep them there working 24/7 just to contain this. So this will likely just have to kind of be contained and run its course, and Mother Nature's probably going to have to stop what she, at least in part, started.
Is it a combination, though? The fires are going on at this really intense rate in Canada. Mm-hmm. They're talking about a crisis situation, but the weather pattern keeps just bringing it here. Is that just the normal jet stream, or what is that? Why are we seeing all of that come right here to Wisconsin?
Right. We typically have a west to east flow of all weather patterns, upper level air. The jet stream typically goes west to east, but it's not due west, due east, right? It fluctuates north and south. The last little while, we've had a high pressure ridge to our east, which has been kind of cycling that air down toward us on this more southern and southeasterly wind. And so if you think about the jet stream is being like a river or a stream, and the high is like a rock, and so it creates this weird little pattern. Like if you look at the stream, and the water goes around that rock in weird patterns. Well, that little rock in the stream is causing that smoke to kind of circle around back to us, and it's really been persistent. It hasn't really broken up. Our weather pattern has been consistent day to day to day to day, and that's why we just can't break free until that pattern breaks down.
I kind of wonder if it has other impacts on our weather. Obviously, there's the air quality, the breathing concern, which we're going to talk more about. But does it also, like, we've had all these really sunny days that didn't turn out to be all that sunny because of the haze and the smoke. Does that actually keep our temperatures down? Does it change our weather with all that smoke in the air?
So yeah, it can have some impact on that. It can keep the temperatures down to a certain extent. I don't think we're at the level where it's thick enough to really undercut it, because you also get kind of a greenhouse effect as well.
Where it's trapping the air.
heat you're getting in is not, and that's why. Have you noticed the nights? There's no cool nights. We had a couple with that nice little break there, and then it was right back into it. And so that's part of the problem. We're just not cooling down at night either. This whole thing kind of was set up over the course of time, because what we've seen in recent decades are warmer, milder summers and winters up in that part of Canada. And when you have easier winters there, you don't get the snow base, so you end up with a very dry forest. So a couple, 3 rather mild, lower snowfall winters back to back to back like that, and this forest was just sitting there waiting for a spark, which eventually came, and now here we are struggling to contain it.
Are we going to see these going for, like, we had it in 2023, now 2025? Should we expect, is this like summer in Wisconsin now?
I would say yes. I don't think it's going to be every summer, because there are a lot of variables that have to line up for this to be like this consistently. But we're going to see more wildfires, not only in Canada, but, Minnesota, the Dakotas, areas that are farther west and northwest of us that are going to be bringing us that wildfire smoke. And, states like California and, the southern states, the Four Corner states, they're all in a similar situation where they're tinder dry forests. We've left forests in many cases undermanaged, the ones that can be managed. And so they're just waiting as fuel to just burn endlessly and create this massive problem for firefighters across the country and across the continent.
So, we have bad air quality here lately. Now, you said the wildfires are just north of the Dakotas. Does that mean the Dakotas and even like parts of Minnesota are also dealing with some dangerous conditions?
So Minnesota this time around has been spared a little bit because of this like eddy effect that I was talking about before, where it's kind of like going around this ridge and cycling back to us. So it's almost stayed just north of Minnesota. Northern Minnesota has been pretty bad. For a while, it drifted south and it went back north for them. So they haven't had the consistency that we've had, but we've been in this similar pattern day after day after day. So we just can't seem to break free. That should start to break down over the next few days.
So we've got like some cleaner air coming, maybe.
Yeah. But I've been calling this a pause. Once we finally get a little break from the smoke, I wouldn't say it's over. It's a pause, because
and it's going to come back.
Until the fires are under control, until we likely get to like late fall or even winter, we really won't be at a stop.
That's great news, Rob.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
You often have to. You got to tell us what we're going to see. No,
right.
But in the end, this is just obviously it does impact. I mean, what is the one season in Wisconsin where you go, I can be outside, I can enjoy festivals and fairs, state fairs going on, and there's that real health concern about what you're breathing in.
Right. I mean, unfortunately for places like State Fair, there are some options there. As long as you don't have underlying health conditions, there are places you can get inside, get some fresh air, and then, maybe you go out for another 20, 30 minutes, and then you get back in and you enjoy the new mop sensation or whatever at the products pavilion, right? Totally. So there are places. But yeah, you're right. Like some of these smaller community events, like the street fairs and, the county fairs, the smaller counties like Kozaki or whatever, that's not really an option, because even the cattle barns, it's not like they're air-conditioned cattle barns, so you can't really escape it.
I was going to play soccer Friday night, and I was wearing my soccer gear in the hallways here because I was about to head out. Lisa Michael saw me, and she said, "Where are you going? Do you have an indoor soccer game?" And I said, "No, it's outside." She said, "You shouldn't be doing that. We're telling you not to do that." So, I hadn't really thought about it. But then you get out there and you go, I wonder if this affects my stamina out here. I don't know. I mean, is it that bad that
Well, it really depends person to person, right? If you have underlying health issues like respiratory or heart issues, then yeah, you definitely should not be overexerting yourself in this kind of air quality. If you don't, you kind of have to just listen to your body a little bit more, minimize your exposure, minimize your exertion. It's not the day to go for the hat trick out there. Just,
Not like I'm getting hat tricks anyway.
Just
Rob,
play some,
come on.
just play some solid D. It's okay.
Sit back.
Leave
Now,
it to the
has
hockey guy to throw out hat tricks.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I know you talked about, a little bit with the jet stream and the rock and all that stuff. And so have things changed? I mean, I know the answer is probably yes, but like when I was a kid, and we talked about this in the beginning, like I don't remember these things happening. Did I just forget, or have they been happening more frequently? The fact that we're having all these air quality issues and alerts.
Yeah. So a couple of things there. I think yes, they have been more frequent. Like our climate has changed to a point where it sets us up for more wildfires. The wildfires last longer. We've unfortunately neglected some of our forests and we've neglected some of our infrastructures. So we're having a harder time getting them under control. So there's that. There's also the human effect, right? Like rose-colored glasses. We remember the past and a rosy glow, and every summer was perfect from the day you got out of school to the day you had to go back. Plus, now you've got it everywhere all the time, all around you.
Yeah.
Right? As a kid,
Like,
it's not like you were like, oh, look at this Instagram pic.
yes.
Right?
It's
I feel like
just-
we also didn't get these fancy maps, with all the color-coded things
Totally.
that scare us because it's red everywhere.
Right. It's the
Yeah.
never-ending media effect. You can't
Yeah.
escape the story. It is everywhere.
Right. And maybe it was happening. We just didn't know it as much because unless you were watching the 5 o'clock news,
Right.
you probably weren't getting it on the internet.
Sure. If mom and dad didn't
Yeah.
tell you about it, you
Totally.
probably had
Yep.
no clue. You
Yeah.
were like, why is my throat itchy? I want a popsicle.
Yeah. Right.
Rob, it's been too long. I'm glad we had you here on the podcast.
Yeah.
But we are not the only ones who are tired of breathing smoky air. Someone else who is a Republican from Wausau, and that is Representative Tom Tiffany. And he did something about it. He wrote a letter to Canada. And we're going to talk about that when we come right back on Open Record. And welcome back to Open Record. We have a special guest here joining us on Open Record for the first time. It is U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany, 7th District Congressman here in Wisconsin. Thank you for being here on Open Record.
It's great to join you today.
So obviously air quality has been an issue all summer long in Wisconsin off and on. It has been for several days in a row. And back on July 7th, you and 5 other members of Congress wrote a letter to the Ambassador of Canada, and that is Kirsten Hillman. Tell us about what prompted you to write that letter and what was the message you were hoping to send, or what were you hoping to get across?
As I think Rob, the meteorologist, was laying out, and I thought he did a very good characterization of laying this out. This has been going on all summer. This started in early June, and myself and a couple representatives from Minnesota, we thought, man, people are really getting tired of this. Let's check with Canada to see if they're planning on doing anything about this with the smoke emanating from Canada. So we sent a letter to the Canadian ambassador asking them if they have any plans to try to deal with this, because it is really bad. I mean, it's a human health concern at this point in Wisconsin. I mean, I've been talking to so many people with respiratory problems. They're like, we can't go outside this summer, and summer is short enough the way it is.
Let me ask you, in the letter you wrote that a key driver of this issue has been a lack of active forest management. Tell me a little bit about what you mean by that, what you know about that, and what you believe maybe could or should be done.
Yeah, Rob called this undermanagement, and that's one way of putting it. And I've been talking about this for a long time, including back when I was in the state legislature a decade ago. We have the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest here in northern Wisconsin, about 1.5 million acres. It is undermanaged. We are not taking enough trees out. And so what happens is you end up with that deadfall on the forest floor. It's going to dry up and ultimately it's going to burn. Now, we don't have as big a problem in Wisconsin because we get enough rainfall, but you go to the western states or what's happening in Canada, and it's extremely dry, and they're always under threat of having these massive forest fires. And so this started, the watershed year to me was about 1990. If you look at a chart, the number of fires went up since 1990. The amount of wood that we're taking off from our national forest has been going down. And I think there's a direct correlation between those two things. Less active management leading to more fire.
Now, the air quality alert and all the effects of that are, it doesn't matter what political leaning you are, it's impacting everybody in the state. Now, the letter that was sent to Canada is signed by Republicans. Did you ask any of your colleagues to jump on to join the letter? What kind of response did you get?
I have to check with my staff in regards to that, but you hit a good point here, Sarah. It is a nonpartisan issue, and people of all walks of life are being affected by it. We just wanted to get a letter off as quickly as possible. I'd have to check with my staff to see if there were inquiries made to some of the Democrat offices, but I do believe it is a nonpartisan issue, and we have received an answer. We did get a reply from the Canadian ambassador.
And tell me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Canadian ambassador replied, and it was pretty much pro forma. There wasn't any actions that they were proposing to take. It was not adversarial in any way. I think we need to continue discussions at this point, and I suggested earlier this week that perhaps if the president is getting in tariff discussions with the Canadians, that this maybe should be put on the table as far as what can be done, because this is like having billowing factories blowing smoke down from Canada into the United States. And I do think that there are ways to deal with this, including some of the advanced technology that we have.
I know that we've been seeing it here, obviously, in Wisconsin, Michigan, parts of Minnesota, but we're also now seeing that the East Coast, New York, the sort of heavy populated centers are getting hit by this. Does that help in terms of any kind of leverage you're looking for when you see that it's not just, they can't just brush it off and say, that's just the northern Midwest, who cares about them? That we've got other parts of the country and some heavily populated centers that are dealing with this as well.
Yeah, for sure. When it's not just flyover country, right? Yeah, without a doubt, having more people that are seeing the impact of this should help us as we go forward. But I think it's really important. There are solutions to this. And I chair the Federal Land Subcommittee on Natural Resources. We just had a hearing a month ago talking about the advanced technologies that can be used to suppress, to identify fire very early on. There really is no reason to have these massive wildfires anymore. And we're trying to get our federal agencies to adopt those advanced technologies to be able to prevent the massive fires that we've seen in the western states. Those same things could be done. Drone technology, satellites, stuff like that. Early detection can happen if we use these advanced technologies, and I'm hoping Canada will adopt some of them.
I did reach out to a few different experts on fire ecology in Canada to try to get them to come on. I was not able to get anyone to come on the podcast this morning, but I've been reading a lot of what they write. And one of the things they talk about is, in addition to you talk about removing more of the sort of forest material, the dead wood and things like that, they talked about more proactive fires, letting fires burn, but doing it strategically. Is that a strategy that you think would help here, or that you think, Canadian government or even here in the United States, that we should be doing more of?
Yeah, it certainly can be used, but I just think it requires more forest management. One of the untold stories in regards to this is the number of sawmills that we've lost in North America here since 1990, when this preservationist mentality set in, where the corporate environmental groups filed lawsuit after lawsuit to stop logging projects, to thin these forests out and not end up with this deadfall in our forests. That has been a major contributor to these massive fires that we have seen. One of the best things that we could do is produce more 2x4s for housing and stuff like that. Let's use some of that wood for productive purposes rather than simply having it burn.
Is some of this, I mean, we do certainly hear, we heard meteorologist Rob Haswell say this, how much of this is simply climate change? The climate is changing. You've got these longer, drier seasons and these longer fire seasons. Is that something that's just inevitable we're going to deal with?
I think climate has always been changing, and regardless of where you stand in regards to is man causing climate change or not, the fact of the matter is we're having massive fires, and it's happening in large part because of a lack of management of our forests. That's what we need to get back to. All you have to do is go back to that watershed year of about 1990, and you can see where there's less active forest management. It is a key component if we're going to control fire, and then use those advanced technologies that we have, and we can do a much better job of controlling fire, whether in the United States or Canada.
Sarah asked that question earlier about the partisan or nonpartisan nature of it. There's certainly no partisanship when it comes to air quality. Everyone wants to breathe better air. When you do talk about things like how you want to accomplish that, do you think that might be where there's a break? Maybe your colleagues on the other side of the aisle may not want to take the approach you're talking about?
We're actually seeing some hope on that front because I've spent a lot of time in the Western states sitting on the Natural Resources Committee dealing with this issue of fire. And one of the things that was helpful a few years ago, though it was a terrible thing, is that 20% of the sequoias out in California burned when they were having these massive wildfires. And there's no reason for sequoias to burn other than a lack of management. We are getting some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that are signing on to some of the bills, like we had a Save Our Sequoias bill a few years ago. They are starting to come aboard somewhat and saying, you know what, we do need to do a better job of management here because, I mean, my gosh, we do not want to lose iconic trees like the sequoias.
You suggested this earlier. Do you believe President Trump will use tariffs as leverage to try to get Canada to do something more about these fires?
Well, to your point earlier, if we're going to see this wildfire smoke on the East Coast, including Washington, D.C., it's certainly going to get more people's attention. So we've raised the issue now, and we'll see if the president uses this in discussions, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
I do want to ask one more thing because you mentioned that the ambassador got back to you, and it was a pretty maybe kind of a stock answer, but it was not adversarial. But there were some comments made by the premier of Manitoba where it was on camera where he referred to you and your colleagues who signed this letter as ambulance chasers in Congress. Any reaction or response to that?
Well, the only ambulances being chased are people with breathing problems here in Wisconsin having to go to the hospital as a result of the smoke. I get it. He's defending Manitoba and Canada. There's been tough discussions going on with tariffs and all the rest, and I think our Canadian friends feel a little bit abused at this point. So I set that aside. I want to get to solutions for this, and it's going to require both the United States and Canada to achieve this because we've seen this happen now for a number of years. And this lack of forest management is catching up to us over the last decade, including in Canada.
Do you feel like this wildfire smoke is ruining Wisconsin summers?
But boy, this year it sure did a number on it. Wasn't too bad in July. I just remember early June and now in early August, particularly bad. But I mean, when you have a respiratory problem, you can't go outside during the summer. When you're seeing events canceled, just talked to a friend down in the Wisconsin Rapids area. There's been some outdoor events canceled. I mean, Wisconsin is where we live a lot of our life in summer. And you really hate to see summers go away as a result of this massive smoke that has come in.
Are you hearing from your constituents at all? I mean, I feel like, it's one thing when you're a congressman and you can kind of feel like you have a little bit more of a path to action. Whereas Gen Pop is kind of like, what can we even do about it? So they're feeling the effects of not only the air quality, but also the canceled events and stuff. So are you hearing from any of your people?
Oh yeah, we're hearing from people about this. But I think the letter to Canada really, shall we say, ignited this issue because it went very public and people are like, yeah, why is this going on and why should it continue? And there should be some responsibility here. So that really got it going. And now with this latest event over the last 7 to 10 days, people are like, hey, can't we do something about this?
Well, U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany joining us here on Open Record. Thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous with it. And thank you for being here on the podcast.
Great to join you for the first time.
All right, we will take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk to a spokesperson from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources about monitoring all of this air quality trouble. We'll do that right after this. Welcome back to Open Record. We are joined now by Craig Zarnecki with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, which is responsible for monitoring air quality across the state of Wisconsin, and that's been a job this summer, hasn't it, Craig?
Yeah, it sure has. It's especially been keeping us busy this summer, for sure. Yep.
Well, tell us a little bit about that role. What does the Department of Natural Resources do in terms of monitoring air quality, and what have you been seeing this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. So we monitor air quality a few different ways. First, obviously, the DNR operates a statewide air monitoring network that includes 18 PM 2.5 monitors, and PM 2.5 is the main pollutant of concern when we're talking about wildfire smoke. Those are particulate matter particles that are 2.5 microns or less, so they're very tiny and inhalable. So we have 18 monitors for that, and then we have 30 ozone monitors spread across the state as well. And these monitors are very high-tech pieces of equipment that need to meet federal monitoring method requirements. Specifically, our PM 2.5 monitors use monitoring technology that measures the amount of scattered energy by those fine particles in a small little sample stream of air. And then those monitors are able to take that data and then use a algorithm to come up with a number. So it's very advanced, well beyond certainly my expertise, but in monitoring folks keep that equipment going all year round. But yeah, very advanced pieces of equipment that we use to monitor the air quality. And then in addition to that, we also have forecasters on staff that use multiple different modeling products. They talk with other meteorologists around the region. And then they use a lot of different information to assess, forecasts and then determine whether or not an air quality advisory would be necessary.
So obviously, it's an increased amount of looking at some of these air quality numbers. What do you guys typically look for, I should say, in the different kind of pollutants that are in the air in general, like aside from wildfire smoke?
Yeah, so typically when we're monitoring, we're measuring the concentration, and that is converted into what's called the AQI, or Air Quality Index. And that gives us a number and a color-coded color that associates with that concentration. So on a good day, for example, your the color is going to be green for good, and then your pollutant value is going to be between 0 and 50. Between 50 and 100 is yellow, and that's moderate air quality. And then once we get to that orange, that's between 100 and 150. That orange level is going to be unhealthy for sensitive groups. So that would be people like children, the elderly, people with lung or heart issues, asthma. Anyone in those sensitive groups are going to be affected. So that's typically when we would issue an advisory once we hit that orange level.
Sarah asked about the different things. Wildfire smoke's obviously the reason we're talking about this right now, because that's been a particular problem this summer. But I feel like we kind of get the worst of both worlds in southeastern Wisconsin, because we're also in that sort of area near Chicago where we get some of the stuff that comes up from, I don't know if it's industry or what it is, but we've always been under this sort of reformulated gasoline thing because the air quality here. And now we're getting wildfire smoke coming down from Canada. It just feels like we're getting it from both sides. Yeah. Am I right in saying that we're just kind of in a bad spot because of the wind?
Yeah, particularly southeast Wisconsin, just geographically, especially this summer, you're kind of in a bad spot getting, wildfire smoke from the north, and then we have, classically, we have elevated levels of ozone pollution kind of up and down that Lake Michigan shoreline, and that's a result of pollutants from our south, in the Milwaukee area and our south. Those pollutants blow out over the lake, and then on hot sunny days, those pollutants react with heat and sunlight to form ozone, and then later in the afternoon, lake breezes are able to push that ozone back close to shore, and that's when we have our elevated ozone levels. And speaking of, there's chances of some elevated ozone today and through this week. We're going to have some more south winds coming. It's going to get a lot hotter and sunnier. And then with any kind of lingering wildfire smoke in the atmosphere too, that's actually could aid in some more ozone formation too. So not only are we looking at wildfire smoke, this week, while conditions are slowly improving here today, we're going to be focusing on ozone here as well the next few days too.
Are those some of those usual concerns you guys see aside from the wildfire smoke? I mean, obviously they're worse in summer, right? I mean, with you said, the heat. And
wildfire smoke is very much a seasonal pollutant. Typically, we get our impacts more in the late summer, although this has been happening kind of more starting in spring and kind of lasting throughout the summer, this year and especially back in 2023. And then ozone also, that's a summer pollutant since ozone needs heat and sunlight to form. Ozone season typically runs from like April through October. But really, like our big summer months is when we typically see most of that ozone formation.
I know you guys aren't necessarily doing the comparisons to around the world, but it's something to be in this beautiful city of Milwaukee and in Wisconsin, which is such a gorgeous place. And you don't think of it as being like the center of smog and you know, back in the days in LA or New York or wherever. And yet we're seeing these rankings that are like, oh yeah, today Milwaukee is the worst air in the world. You're like, are you kidding me? Are you guys seeing that this is a trend? Is it getting worse over time?
The last few years have definitely been worse than what we were used to seeing. 2023, for example, that was kind of the worst one in recent memory. We had 21 days in 2023 with a PM 2.5 advisory for wildfire smoke. Last year was much more typical. 2024, we only had 3 days. And a few years before that, we hadn't had any. And then this year, here we are again. We're up to 22 days with an advisory, so we've already surpassed what we did in 2023 with, most of August to go here yet. So yeah, the recent trend, we're definitely seeing more occurrences of this. Canada is in the midst of its second worst wildfire season on record, behind only 2023. And just with our, location up here in the upper Midwest, that smoke is able to, ride along with low and high pressure systems when those come our way, and we're just kind of in the wrong spot to be impacted by that.
The technology, obviously, for you guys even has probably rapidly changed, even just in the last couple of years. Are you guys, constantly looking to the next technology that will help, better hone in on some of these air quality issues, maybe pick up different pollutants in the air?
Yeah, monitoring technology has definitely changed, and the way we measure PM 2.5 has even changed in the last 5 or 6 years to be more accurate. And then on top of that, our forecasting has changed also. Specifically since 2023, we're announcing advisories with a little more lead time to give people more time to plan and prepare. Prior to 2023, we really hadn't issued multi-day advisories before either, whereas we're doing that more often now, giving people, more time to plan. Hey, like for this last week, for example, we issued the advisory on Tuesday, July 29th, and that kept getting extended. I think it's finally going to expire today at noon. So getting that information out ahead of time has also helped us. And not only that, we also started working closer with the Department of Health and the Department of Public Education, or Department of Instruction, excuse me, working with our counterparts there. So when we know an advisory is going to happen, we're letting the Department of Health and the Department of Instruction know so they can let schools and clinics and hospitals know also so everyone can better prepare. So yeah, things have definitely evolved, I would say, for the better, more communication, more collaboration with other state agencies over the last few years.
I was thinking about when you mentioned the schools, Department of Public Instruction, because right now it's August. This is the time when football players are out doing two-a-days and soccer teams and other fall sports are out doing all of this work in the heat. And if the air quality sucks, do you actually go, maybe you ought to go indoors, or maybe you ought to cut back a little bit? The new technology, maybe some people go, we did it back in the olden days. But the more you know, and you're breathing in all these particles, is this bad for these kids to be out there, 4-6 hours a day, pushing it as hard as they can when the air is terrible?
Yeah, definitely. It's really important to be paying attention to that air quality index. I've been telling people the last week, think of air quality like the same habit where you're maybe checking the temperature in the morning before you leave or the weather for the day. Check that air quality too throughout the rest of the summer. But yeah, like especially for young students who are, their lungs are still growing and developing. Breathing in that wildfire smoke, is definitely unhealthy and can cause issues, especially if kids have asthma. It can worsen asthma, bring on asthma attacks. So on those days when we're in that orange or red, schools and coaches and everyone really needs to be in close communication to either limit time outdoors, move those practices inside, take it a little easier on the kids on those days. For sure. So yeah, very important to be paying attention to that air quality as we move into the fall sports season here.
It almost sounds like you guys, I mean, you said you're doing more to forecast, almost like you guys have become meteorologists in a way, because you're having to look at the conditions and which way the wind's blowing and go, what are we going to see in the next week or so?
Impact,
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have two forecasters, meteorologists on staff that are, yeah, using a number of different computer models. They work with different meteorologists kind of throughout the Great Lakes region. So yeah, so they're definitely staying on top of things and give us daily forecasts and kind of, letting us know what to expect kind of every day here. We're taking it pretty much day by day at this point over the last week.
If only you could predict what was going to happen with the wake surfing issue. No, that's another story for another day. Anyway, we've talked about that a lot.
We'll call him back. Yeah. No, I mean, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit in bits and pieces here, but it's like, I think for Gen Pop and what they can be doing, it's monitoring air quality just like they would UV index and the temperature and if it's going to rain, and listening to your body and paying more attention. I think kids don't care, right? Like kids run outside and they're like, I'm fine. Well, so then maybe it's, up to a little bit more of a parent responsibility.
I don't think of it either, though, because
well, right.
As I mentioned earlier to Rob Haswell, I was going out for a soccer game and Lisa Michaels was like, hey, are you sure you should be going out today? I think it is something we don't often think about.
Yeah.
But it, like you said, Craig, it's that new thing to make sure you're aware of in addition to, is it going to rain today?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, that partnership with DHS and DPI has come in to kind of help at least make recommendations or some kind of framework that, people can follow. So when we have those days, they can kind of see what maybe we should or shouldn't be doing on those days. And yeah, again, the best thing we can be doing is, staying on top of your air quality conditions, be paying attention to that stuff, and then checking in on neighbors, families, and friends too, especially the elderly or anyone with any kind of respiratory or heart or lung issues. Make sure that they're aware of these bad air quality days and that they're protecting themselves too.
We were kids. The parents are always like, get outside, get out there and play. Now you're your mom of young kids. You're like, get inside, quit being out there.
Come inside for a couple hours.
Craig Zarnecki with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. We appreciate your time here on Open Record. Thank you for watching the air quality for us, and thank you for spending your time here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on today.
We will go off the record when we come right back. And it is time for us to go off the record. This is the part of the podcast where we get a little more casual and have a little fun by answering a question. Well, I guess it's going to be me and Kale because Sarah knows the question. You have it right there.
You know what? It's funny because I almost think I know Kale's answer to this, but we'll see. So the Packers recently posted this on their social media, and I watched the whole video because I was interested, and I never even thought, this is a great question. What movie would you want to live in for one day? So think of a movie and maybe the plot or the scene or what happens.
Like you were a character in the movie or just that?
No, you just want to
world?
live in that world. I mean, I guess you could be in the movie, but
I got to think about it.
Okay, Kale, what is yours and why is it Jurassic Park?
It's not Jurassic Park.
What?
Because
I don't even know you anymore.
Unless I can be one of the people who live.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. You don't want to get bitten in half.
I want to live in Twister.
Oh, what? That would have been a good second choice for me.
Why would you want to live in that?
He loves
because
storm
everyone
chasing.
lives.
Yeah.
Okay. You just because
and
you want to chase
see a
storms.
bunch of sweet tornadoes.
Wait, what's the follow?
Well, everyone doesn't live.
What's the other one? What's the other movie?
Twisters.
The Sharknado?
No. That's like Twister 2.
Twisters.
Oh, with an S.
Yeah.
Okay. Twisters. How do you feel about that one?
It happened.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I was disappointed because they had zero link to the first one.
To the first one, yeah. Who's that smoke show that's in it though?
Maybe the Dorothy thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's zero link.
Yeah.
They could have done something.
Oh, what's that actor's name? He is
in what?
Nice on my eyeballs. In the Twisters movie.
Yeah,
Who's that guy?
I never saw Twisters. The original one was what's her name?
Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt. Yeah. But was she in the second one?
No.
I don't
Nope.
know.
There was nothing.
There were no callbacks. But anyway, okay. So he wants to live in Twister.
R.I.P. Bill Paxton.
I'm trying to think of what it would be, but I feel like it would have to be something sci-fi where I could be like super like futuristic.
Okay. Yeah.
Like something, but like. Well, this isn't a movie, but back in the days, man, when I was a kid, I dreamed of being in Battlestar Galactica. I wanted to fly in those ships, and I wanted to fight the Cylons. That was pretty. But otherwise, it would be. There was a movie I was growing up with, totally inappropriate, but Spring Break, because it was just basically Spring Break in Fort Lauderdale, and I was like, if I could live in that would be pretty cool.
I want to do that.
That'd
Glenn Powell, that's his name. The actor that I was just trying to think of with Twisters. Okay.
Okay. What's the movie you want to live in?
I was trying to think, and I was like, I don't even have a great answer for this. I do love the movie Wizard of Oz. Like, awkwardly love it. But I don't know if I want to live in that. I was trying to think of like a good food movie, like Ratatouille, but that's animated, so then it got weird again.
Actually, living in an animated movie would be kind of cool.
Like Wreck-It Ralph or something, where they're like in video games.
Oh, Ready Player One.
Oh yeah,
I don't know that movie.
That's
Ready Player One.
VR, basically, living in a VR world, right?
Yeah.
Wait, is that an old movie?
So they don't live in a VR world; they live in the real world. But
the
real world kind of
exist in this VR game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You've never seen it?
Oh, good movie. No, that's a good one.
And there's so many Easter eggs in there from like stuff you will know. It's so cool.
I've never even heard of it, but I feel like
no, I like that. But I was thinking when you start getting into animated, I don't know, it'd be kind of cool to hang out with Shrek and Donkey.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, they'd be
and
funny.
See all those fairy tale characters,
right?
I could,
yeah, Gingerbread Man.
I could totally do that.
Three Blind Mice. Okay. Well, shoot, I'm trying to think of other movies that
you want to live. I mean, like a lot of the movies I think of, I don't think I want to be any part of that. You know?
Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
I was obsessed with that in high school.
Okay.
I wanted those cars and underneath the semi.
The fact that you just made the sound is outstanding.
What about like, I don't know, like a Ocean's 11? Like I think like a cool where you're trying to like be in a heist or I don't know,
with a bunch of cool guys
crack
trying
a code
to,
on a safe.
And I don't know what my, each
what
of
your
them
role
has sort
would
of
be.
their talents or whatever. I don't
You
know
don't
what
have to
mine would
necessarily
be.
have a role. You just live in it.
Yeah. I guess I like, what I think about what I want to go in the family truckster cross country.
Oh,
I want to go with Chevy Chase and,
whatever
all
else.
of that.
Yeah. Would you go, which one?
Which
one? You want to go
the original.
No,
the original.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to see
What is it
Christy
called?
Brinkley
Wally
on the
World?
road. Yeah.
Wally World.
I don't want to eat sandwiches the dog peed on, but otherwise.
Okay. What about like a Sandlot?
Yeah,
or
I
something.
can see
I don't know.
That's all right. I don't want to live in like I start thinking about. I grew up with like Friday the 13th things. And
no, thank you, Octopus.
Nope, want that. Poltergeist.
No.
Don't want to live with that at all.
I don't. No scary anything. The Shining.
No. Mission Impossible.
I'm a late lover of these Mission Impossible. We just watched all of them, like not in succession, or not
There's
consecutively.
so many of them now.
There are so many,
Yeah.
but the kid like. Our family sat down and watched the first one. The kids were like, we love this. We have then watched every single one. We saw the final one in the theater, and I felt like a way because I'm like, this is the end.
My wife describes the Mission Impossible movies. She says they're kind of like the Law and Order of action movies.
Yes.
Because you know what's going to happen. You know,
and that's
but
fine,
it's still good watching.
Good. And it's aside from a little bit of sweary and a little bit of death, but like the kids like the whole, the way Tom Cruise and kind of some of his side characters.
Doing his own stunts for those things is also part of what makes it just ridiculous.
I have rabbit holed on Instagram reels of video of these scenes happening and how, he's harnessed to the plane as it's flying. I mean, it truly is bananas.
Wait a minute. I just realized the movie I want to live in. I grew up with this movie, and when I was a kid, I desperately wanted to live in Tron.
Oh my God, man. It's so funny because I was going to just say Lawnmower Man. That's kind of similar, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Just the idea of being inside a video game and being a character in the video game, that I would have loved. So, the remade Tron was fine, but the original.
OG.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to get that Ready Player One, Sarah.
I wrote it down really because I'm going to bring it to the fam and be like,
it's one of those where I can just put it on and watch it over and over.
Really? That's how I feel about Con Air. Just a weird thing.
I
love that movie. Yeah. There's something about it.
I certainly don't want to live in...
I do not want to live in Con Air,
or in Shawshank Redemption, but that's a movie I could watch every time it comes on. I will watch wherever it is in the movie.
TBS, thank you very much, TBS and TNT, for bringing me these movies on a Saturday at 2 p.m. because I will watch it every single time.
I don't have cable anymore, but when I used to, it was always on something. And if I was flipping through, I'd stop and watch Shawshank. And
USA.
Morgan Freeman's voice would just keep me along for the rest of the movie.
Yes.
And do you have anything like that, Kale? A movie that you can't turn away from?
Jurassic Park, Twister, and Independence Day.
Oh, Independence Day. We just watched that one with the kids for the first time.
All right. We have wrapped things up for this week. We'll take a break and wrap it all up when we come right back after this.
The FOX6 investigators. Fearless.
Is that a gun in your hand?
Did you just hip check me? Unrelenting.
We don't just ask questions.
We demand answers.
Award-winning in-depth journalism.
We are Milwaukee's investigative team.
Experienced and respected.
The Fox 6 Investigators. Because you matter. Dig deeper, track updates, and binge watch our latest investigations only on the Fox Local TV app.
If you have a topic you would like us to discuss on Open Record, an issue you think we should investigate for Fox 6 News, or a movie you'd like to live inside, let us know. Send us an email to fox6investigators@fox.com. Thank you to all the people who make this podcast possible, including our executive producer, Sarah Smith. Our guest today, meteorologist Rob Haswell. Of course, Kale Zimney, who is working the switcher today and is our chief photographer, and our editor, Dave Machuda. With that, I'm Brian Polson. We'll be back next week.